Hi, welcome to our Homestead series. We hope this will be of enjoyment and informative. We don't know everything, we don't do everything perfect, but what we do know works for us. In these economic times, people have been talking about a back to the land movement or getting back to a more simple way of life. The transformation from the comforts of city dwelling and our modern way can be a little different going back to the homestead. I won't say complicated, but there are some things some people should know. So I hope you enjoy this series. Thank you for watching.
Okay, I'm going to be making some beef soup to can. What you want to do first is to place your beef bones into a roasting pan or even a broiler will do, and roast them in the oven for about an hour at 350. This helps to drain a lot of the fat off of the meat, and it'll save on the skimming later. It makes a really nice flavor in your soup. So we're going to go ahead and put these in the oven. Okay, I'm cooking this beef roast to add to my soup later. If I was just going to add it to the soup, I would probably leave it raw, and I would just cube it as stew meat and add it to the canning jars. But I'm going to use some of it for supper. So I'm going to pre-cook it, and you can just the same. You can use leftover meat as well as raw meat in your soups when you're canning. So I'm just going to add just a little bit of water. That's maybe quarter to half a cup. No, probably closer to half a cup. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of pepper. And a little bit of garlic. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little salt on. And you could certainly go ahead and add fresh garlic in here. You could add onions, you could add whatever you want. It all brings out a really nice flavor. So now I'm just going to cover this and cook it on low for probably about 5 or 6 hours until it's done. Okay, the bones have been in the oven for about an hour, and as you can see, they're nicely browned up. And it's a little hard to see on the camera here, but there's quite a bit of fat that has come out. And that's good because that'll save you some skimming later when you go to cool your broth. Now I'm just going to put these into the stock pot. Okay, I've added my bones to the stock pot, and I've added an onion that's quartered. I'm bringing this to a boil, and then I will turn it down and let it simmer all day. As the broth cooks down, it will turn a brown color, and the more you cook it down, the darker brown it will get, and the more stronger tasting. Okay, I've let our soup sit overnight, and as you can see, the fat has come to the top and gone nice and hard. So I'm just going to skim that all off now. You might notice that the bone is still sitting in the soup, and that's because that I hadn't finished cooking it down last night by the time it was time to turn in. And I don't like leaving the stove on if I'm not around. So I just left them in, and I'm going to skim this off, and then I'm going to heat it back up, finish cooking it down just a little bit more, because it's almost done. Okay, our soup is cooked down into a nice thick, nice rich broth now. So I'm going to pour it through the strainer to get out the bits of onion and the bones. Now we have a nice dark beef broth for our soup. You could can this as is, just to be plain stock, or you can pour it over top of plain meat as well. I like to can meat and broth if I have it on hand. It gives a little nicer taste than plain water. But today we're just going to use it for soup. Okay, I've added my diced carrots, potatoes, and beef to my jars. The carrots and potatoes are raw. The beef's been cooked. You could use raw beef if you wanted to. I'm just using leftovers from a roast I made. I didn't measure this. I just went and put about 2 large spoonfuls, like a serving spoon size, maybe about half a cup of each. Use as much or as little as you want. If you prefer more broth to your soups, then obviously use less filling. I find this works well for us. Okay, I'm just going to start adding the broth to the jars now. Just a little bit more. You want to leave about 1 inch of headroom. That's perfect right there. Okay, now that our jars are full, take a wet cloth and wipe the rim of your jar so you'll have a clean sealing surface. This is especially important when you're dealing with something that has grease in it, like meat. Now, when you skimmed off most of the fat off the top of the broth before, that would get most of it out. And when you're chopping your meat for your soup, cut off all the little bits of fat that you can. Fat can get in this area and prevent a good seal. So it's a good idea to remove as much as you can. Okay. Now, put your lids on. Now add your rings, finger tight. Add your jars into your canner. I've got 7 quarts of beef soup in my canner now. I've just got the temperature turned up high. I'm going to put the lid on and wait for it to come to a boil. Okay, our canner is now boiling inside, and it's venting the steam out of the top of the canner. I hope the camera's picking it up, okay? So now I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. Okay, our steam has been venting for 10 minutes now. I'm going to put the 10-pound weight on the canner. This one is a Miro and it screws on. Some of the other ones, like Prestos, they generally just sit on top. There we go. Now we're just going to leave this until it starts to come up to pressure and this starts to rock. And then we'll adjust it with the temperature to get just a slow, steady rocking. Okay, our canner has come up to pressure. I've just turned it down a little bit to regulate the speed. It's really hard to pick up on the camera, but the weight is just gently rocking back and forth and slowly turning as it does that. You just want a nice gentle movement. If it goes too quickly, then just turn your temperature down a little bit. If it stops moving, you've lost your pressure. You'll have to turn it back up, wait for it to start moving again, and get it set and regulate it, and start your timing over again if it does go down. So anyway, mine's just perfect right now. What I'm going to do now is set my timer for 90 minutes because these are quart jars. If I was doing pints, then it would be for 75 minutes. Okay, our 90 minutes are up, and I'm just going to turn the canner off now. And now you want to just turn off the heat and let this come down off the pressure on its own. Don't take the weight off, don't move it, just leave it alone. Okay. Once the canner's depressurized, you'll stop hearing the steam escaping and the gurgling sounds of the water inside. Let it sit for a few more minutes and then take the weight off. Then unlock your canner and lift the lid off. Make sure it's facing away from you because there will still be a lot of hot steam in there. Now you can lift your jars out and set them on a towel. I hear them starting to seal already. And as you can see, I forgot to put my vinegar in here. That's why the jars are turning white. Right. Okay, just leave these jars to sit for about 24 hours and then take the rings off and wipe the jars down and label them and put them away. And you're all done.